Welcome back to another Matt and Matty breakdown some QB play. We have Matt Cassel here with us, and we're going to go over just a couple plays from the Denver Broncos game from the Chiefs, and then we're going to look forward to the playoffs a little bit with a fun design that I think we're going to see come up again from the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. So this first one here, Matt, and I'll let you kind of break it down. Let's first look at what the Denver Broncos defense is trying to do on this play and what kind of coverage they're playing out of this one.
Okay, yeah, it's a cover four shell all the way, right? He runs across with Kelsey. You've got your two linebackers, one over number 3 on the inside, one over Kelsey. And so it's a zone defense, zone concept, quarter, right? And so this is a great play for that because, again, you've got two spot routes. You've got Tyreek Hill coming in there, and he's trying to create that high-low, right? It's kind of like that switch release with Pringle. He's going to go in, and as soon as that guy goes in, he's going to sit there, and he can come out of that, right? And he's an option for sure. But as soon as that linebacker commits right now to Tyreek Hill, you've got Pringle. That window opens up. You'll see the vacancy from the other angle that it opens up right now for the in cut, and it's a quick hitter, right? You've got to be on time. But as soon as that linebacker, as you'll see from this angle right here, as soon as he drops him, comes down, now that window opens up, and it's great timing. It was definitive. He knew exactly where he wanted to go with the ball, and that was the right read. And then it was a great job by Pringle at the top of his route, coming downhill, cutting off that strong safety defender. And Mahomes also does a good job here with ball placement. You know, we were talking about it before the podcast actually started of where he puts this ball. He kind of protects the throw right here on the backside of him and not able to give that defender any opportunity to get his hand on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the safety coming down can't cut off Byron Pringle on this little in cut coming back across to get to the ball. I wanted to ask you, what's kind of the progression for Patrick Mahomes in this play? So is he essentially just going to be reading this Mike linebacker and then he's either going to throw to Hill breaking outside or Pringle in behind him? Or is there a third progression here? Because I assume he's just working the bottom of the screen here, the 3 receiver side. Is it just essentially reading the Mike, or is he looking at something else as well?
Really, in that type of pre-snap read, you're sitting there and you go, it's cover 4. So that's where you want to go with the ball, right? Because, again, it creates an immediate high-low. If that linebacker gets depth and into that in-cut window, you can put the ball on Tyreek Hill right now for a catch and run, right? But in this type of structure, this is exactly what you're thinking is going to happen. The linebacker's got to play that zone. He commits to Tyreek Hill, and then right in behind it, you saw the big vacancy, the big hole right there, and he's going to put it on him, particularly against this type of coverage.
No, awesome. Then we talked about that ball placement. You can see it pretty good from this angle here, and that safety's coming downhill. There's no chance for him to get through the receiver to make a play on it without committing a penalty. So that was perfect. That's what we wanted to see. We're going to move on to our next play now, and this was the game-sealing catch by Travis Kelsey. So first, we're going to start with kind of the defense that the Broncos are playing, because it looks like they exchange responsibilities in the middle of this route, which was kind of an interesting move on their part here.
Right. You love the motions, right? Because, again, what does that do, especially versus man coverage? It makes that defense communicate. So they're communicating late, right before the snap. And right here, you've got Travis Kelsey does a great job stemming in and then getting across into that vacancy, into that window over there over the top. And you're kind of trying to create a mesh route here by the slot at the bottom and Travis Kelsey, where if it is man, which it is, it's one funnel is what we like to call. So that linebacker runs out with the halfback. You've got the whole defender trying to take the shallow crossing route, and then Kelsey comes in behind, in which, look, the defender's playing from behind at this point, right? He's trying to play catch up. And then the other player, I don't know what's going on. I think that they're trying to create a pass-off situation, but the nickel defender doesn't get it. So Travis is running wide open in that little window right there where everybody vacates. So it's man-to-man. He's got to run to win.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly where we're going to next. So we're getting man coverage here, and it looks like the Broncos are trying to play a zone defender kind of shallow or underneath, but it's just the passing off of the crossing route from our slot defender at the bottom of the screen. He carries a little bit too far, I would guess, on this play, and that leaves Travis Kelsey wide open. It's a great play design, but I assume that's what they're trying to do is get this nickel defender on the bottom of the screen of the slot to settle down in the middle of the field to kind of play as almost a robber type role, correct?
Right. Well, really what it is those two linebackers, right? If the halfback was to go for some reason to the left and release to the left, that other linebacker would take him and it would free up the linebacker that takes the halfback there, right? But because he goes to the right, that linebacker is responsible for him. The other linebacker becomes a hole defender. So he's a free defender. He's looking for anything crossing in front of his face, just like you see right here on the shallow route. He's there. He gives presence. So it's what we refer to as one funnel. They're funneling the back, essentially.
Yeah, no, perfect. And then the next question I had is, How often, I guess I don't see it too often where you have a tight end release underneath the defensive end there. So on Travis Kelsey's release here, is he's just trying to avoid contact with the defensive end. Does that mess with coverages at all for a defense? I mean, it's doesn't look like it's a lot, but it looks like releasing underneath that defensive end just creates a little extra space and traffic for a coverage player to have to work through.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think that this is something that how you draw it up, right? And you look in the playbook and go release under the defensive end. This is just Travis Kelsey being a ball player, right? He sees that his easiest path to where he needs to go is to release under this guy. He thinks he's got enough room to do it, and he's able to get across right now and give himself a better angle to get into that window there. So, again, this is just Travis Kelsey being a good football player because, I mean, I wouldn't recommend this for most guys, but he's got the speed, he's got the quickness to do it.
Yeah, just a quick ID and then just an adjustment on the fly because it worked out great. It got the timing and everything worked out perfectly. It's not something you see a ton. We'll see it one more time here. I guess the wide split. Yeah, you see it right there. He just slips underneath it, and that allows him to get out in front of the coverage player, put the defender on his back when he's running across the field. So as we work to our last play here, this is actually something the Chiefs ran 3 times in this game. So it's going to be motion into a condensed bunch set here. So you're going to get 3 wide receivers on the same side, nice and tight to the line of scrimmage, and then a wide receiver screen off of it. But you notice the Chiefs are just snapping the ball so quick. They did this 3 times. 2 of them were this little wide receiver quick slip screen here. And I just wanted to ask, what does it kind of do to a defense when you go in this motion? Like you get the coverage IDs with motion, but when you snap the ball this quickly coming off the motion, what kind of stress does that put on the defensive side of the ball?
Oh, it puts a tremendous amount of stress on the defense. Why? Because when you get any type of bunch set, there's always communication that has to take place among those defensive backs, right? Are we comboing? Are we locking this? And then all of a sudden you come from 2 men on that side where it's usually one-on-one, and this goes to a man defense right here. Then all of a sudden you get another guy in that comes to the party, and all 3 of those defenders have to actually communicate like, hey, what are we doing here? Are we locking it? Are we playing lock and combo? And then when you snap it on the motion at this point, the adjustment's hard to be made, and you got blockers out in front. The one guy overcommits to the screen. He kind of recognizes that it's going to be a screen, but again, the opportunity for them to snap the ball right now before they can communicate is a huge reason for the success of this play.
And then you pair it up with the run action, to the backside of the play. It might be an RPO. They might decide just based on look here pre-snap if they're going to throw the screen. But you see, you get the offensive lines blocking run to the right. That actually looks like it draws in this overhang defender, a linebacker here trying to shoot the gap. It's like they catch the Broncos out here. They did it again later in the game. So I actually want to go to the whiteboard now because I want to look at this same concept, this motion into the bunch. And we're going to ask Matt, just for some other route concepts we might expect to see in the playoffs from Andy Reid and the Chiefs using the same pre-snap motion here. All right, so here we kind of have general concept of what the Chiefs did. We're lined up with 2 by 2 with the receivers, and then we have our F goes in motion to the other side. And now we have man coverage on this play, kind of like the Broncos were running there. So we come out of this motion, we get the condensed bunch set here. If the Chiefs snap it quick, these defenders don't have a ton of time to adjust, call too many adjustments or anything on here. So I just wanted to ask Matt here, is it normal to get a man coverage call out of this kind of motion, or is it just dependent on team to team if you're going to get man or zone coverage?
It's usually depending on the situation and also team to team, right? They have their tendencies. Every team has their tendencies. And when you watch that clip from the Broncos, they went from, it almost looked like a cover 4 shell, but then it went to man, and it looked like they were playing lock. When I say lock and combo, what I mean is the strong safety is one-on-one on the Y, right? Yes. And then there's a combo going on between that defender, the nickel defender that ran over with the F, and the corner. Meaning if the Z goes inside, right, then he'll pass that off to the nickel. And then if the F goes out, like if they switch release, right, and the Z was to run outside, the F was to go outside, the corner would take over that responsibility. Does that make sense? So they're comboing those 2 guys. Now, if they both go vertical in the same direction, they're locked on those guys. But when I say lock and combo, the lock stands for the strong safety locked on the Y, and then the nickel and the corner have some sort of combo, like an in and out situation, just in case they switch release it.
So let's say the Chiefs get that kind of man coverage ID, or they think they get the man coverage ID coming out of this quick motion. So we have our slot. He goes across the formation. We get this now condensed bunch. We think we're getting man coverage. Let's have you walk me through just kind of a route combination that you think would pair pretty well with always throwing these quick receiver screens off of it, and where you maybe could take advantage of a defense starting to cheat towards those a little bit.
Well, it's interesting because we have a ton of bunch concepts, and we ran a ton of these in New England. We ran a ton of them when I was in Kansas City, and there's a lot of bunch concepts that you have for all different types of coverage. In this particular route concept that I'm going to give you, so you're going to put the Y. He's got to vertically release first, and then run a shallow cross right in front of those linebackers. There you go. And then the X backside, we'll put him right now on an in cut. There you go. The Z is what we're going to run. Is he's going to run what we call an invert route. So he's going to sell that 5 yard out. He's going to spray release it. So he's going to run at the outside shoulder of that defender, put his foot in the ground, and return back in. And then the F, this is the critical part for the F. He's going to come off the wake of that Y, right? So he wants to stab inside a little bit and try to pin that nickel inside. And then he's right off of that. Will set a natural pick from the Y, right? His release. That's why it's so important for that Y to vertically stem. And he's going to run a corner route. Yep, he's going to run up and then. And what's really hard on this play for that nickel defender is when you stab inside with that F and allows that Y to go up and get into his wake and get into his into his window right there, he has to run over the top of that Y. And usually now it puts him in a trail position because what does that outside corner do? He's got to play it like just completely normal, right? He's got to jump that Z. He's responsible for that Z. So he'll be there. And now that nickel's got to play catch up to that F running the corner route from a trail position, which is hard to do. And that's where the big hitter is on this play.
Yeah, so you're creating you're creating a switch release here. This inside stem here off our F wide receiver pulls in this nickel, like Matt Cassel was saying here, and you're going to allow the Y to get up into his body. He's got to peel up over the top, and as long as this corner is respecting our little invert route out here, which he should be given, man coverage, that corner route should be open. With the weak safety on the backside is being held by the in cut by this X receiver. Very unlikely he's going to be flowing all the way over to that side, especially early in the play. So let's say the defense here does cover this F receiver, whether we get, the switch wrong, maybe the strong safety ends up taking him or whatever. Like if this corner route's taken away, where would you be looking next as a quarterback?
Well, you can always come right back down to the Z. That's why we put the invert route on it, right? Because it's a deceptive play because he's selling that out route, right? And so that corner's jumping and then he puts his foot in the ground. And you've seen them run that a lot of times. Some other teams will call it a whip route. Some people will call it an invert route. But you put your foot in the ground, come back inside, and it's an easy 1-2 read because really all those guys are responsible for somebody, but you're beating a man. And if you don't like that, for some reason, the Z falls down and the F, it looks muddy, you can always get back to the end cut because that weak safety should work to the middle of the field, right? He's going to have some depth in this particular defense. And so you can always get back to the high-low on the Y and the X here, right? And the X is always good because really on an in cut, you're trying to use speed to roll that in there and beat your defender, and he should have an opportunity.
And now one other question I wanted to ask before we get you out of here. Let's say this safety here starts cheating early, or say this cornerback is playing with a hard, inside leverage. Since this receiver's isolated here on the backside, most teams kind of have a built-in alert or some kind of just hand signal or call to alert this receiver to a different kind of route on this, whether it's press coverage, off coverage. Would you change this kind of backside wide receiver route based on the coverage you're seeing?
Absolutely. I mean, for any quarterback, particularly a veteran quarterback, as he grows inside the system and he knows the system and he looks out there, he's got a one-on-one he likes, he can signal anything he wants. He can signal a fade route, he can signal a stop route because he likes his one-on-one matchup. Again, this league is built on matchups, right? You always are evaluating, hey, where's my best matchup? And right there, you've got your bunch set that has got a lot going on there. But if you ever look out and say, hey, that guy's off and I can throw a 5-yard hitch, hey, signal him the hitch. If he all of a sudden comes and presses with inside leverage and you love the go route, hey, signal him a go route, take your 3 steps and make it simple on yourself and deliver the ball. So that's the beauty of any time that you know what your matchup is being able to signal as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Chiefs fans, nightmares again, but that's essentially what the Bengals did on the Ja'Marr Chase 3rd and 7. They came out and said if you get off coverage, we were just running a hitch route. If you got press coverage or anything else, they were going to run a fade. That's what they did. So that was kind of your adjustment here on the backside of this kind of stuff. So this is great because I do think the Chiefs showed this quick motion into this condensed bunch, and then they hit you with wide receiver screen after wide receiver screen against the Broncos. We've all watched enough Andy Reid. There's going to be something else built off of that. Like, it doesn't end there. I can assure you they had success with that. They had the 40-yard play at the end of the game. They had another 10-yard gain, but there's going to be more coming from Andy Reid. So I appreciate it, Matt. Thank you for jumping on, because something like this, some version of a route like this is going to come up in the playoffs at some point in time off that quick motion of the bunch if I know Andy Reid at all.
Oh, don't kid yourself. They're for sure going to make that little pump fake, and they're going to run up. They're going to act like they're blocking and then go seam route and go route, and they're going to hit a big one. It'll be fun to watch.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you so much for jumping on again. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, fellas.